As the only Latina on the South Side, I'm ready to call out any tricks that the Rules Committee will pull to try to sneak their map into law.
Welcome to the Cloutcast. I'm Erin Hegarty, and I'll be your host today. Well, we've made it to February, and through arguably one of the longest months of the year in Chicago. And as of this recording, and probably by the time this episode of the Cloutcast gets to your ears, the Chicago City Council still has not yet voted on a new ward map, meaning we're now more than 2 months past the critical December 1st deadline for voting on new ward boundaries, and inching even closer to the possibility of the map being chosen by voters via referendum. Leaders of the City Council Latino Caucus and the Aldermanic Black Caucus are still at loggerheads over where and even how to draw ward boundaries. But this week, I wanted to talk with one of the aldermen leading the charge for the Latino Caucus-backed coalition map. Silvana Tabares is the alderman of the 23rd Ward, located on the city's southwest side, and the vice chair of the City Council Latino Caucus. In her leadership role with the caucus, Tabares has been vocal about the need to increase the number of majority Latino wards in the city. She has also helped propose a set of protocols for the actual map drawing process. I spent some time last week talking with Tabares about how the remap is going, what new boundaries could mean for her 23rd Ward, her leading of the charge last year to oppose Mayor Lori Lightfoot's vaccine mandate for city workers, and legislation she has planned for 2022. Let's get to it. So today we have with us 23rd Ward Alderman Silvana Tabares. Welcome to the Cloutcast.
Hi, Erin. Thank you for having me on your podcast. Looking forward to having a conversation with you.
Yeah, me too. And hopefully by the time this airs, all of the side streets are plowed and we're not so snowy anymore. But
yes, hopefully no more snow.
So one reason I wanted to talk with you now is, you're the vice chair of the City Council's Latino Caucus, and in that role, and as the city's remap process is kind of heated up and dragged on to now more than, 2 months past that critical December 1st deadline, you've become obviously a leader and a strong proponent of the coalition map, which is backed by most of the Latino caucus and a few other aldermen. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the process the caucus and other aldermen went through in drawing that map proposal, and maybe also talk a little bit about why you believe, this is the best map proposal before the city council right now.
No, yeah. So as a caucus from the very beginning, we were not going to stand for any tricks, and we were going to let the numbers speak for themselves. And, you've been following this since the summer back in July when we, as a caucus, called for a fair map that follows the data and that gives all of Chicagoans a voice. And part of the process that what we've done with the map is that, we've engaged with community groups, we engaged with stakeholders from all corners of the city. We welcome that input, and because it's so important to be engaged and have that dialogue with our community, and we've been doing that since the summer. And another thing that we've done, the coalition members, is we've engaged with our colleagues as well as the aldermen of which we share the borders. And the process, Erin, it's been open, it's been transparent. I mean, in August, when the census data was released, we've been following the data, and the caucus has been guided by the data. And we want to work collaboratively with all 50 aldermen so that we can draw a fair and a map that's representative of all minority communities. Another thing that we've done that I really want to mention is, we've given our electronic data and our map files to the Rules Committee Council, Mike Casper, and we've introduced our map 6 weeks before the December 1st deadline. You mentioned, it's been a couple of months already since December 1st. You mentioned that earlier. And I really want to stress the importance of how the members of the coalition map, we've introduced our map 6 weeks before the December 1st, because Erin, we know that these backroom deals that happen in the 11th hour, and unfortunately, many of the aldermen felt the census numbers put their political clout in jeopardy, and they've engaged in these same old backroom shenanigans that we see too often in our city. And so that's the coalition map. That's the process that we've done. Making sure that all communities are fairly represented, respect the boundaries. It doesn't divide communities. The Garfield Ridge neighborhood that I live and represent is now represented by 2 aldermen as opposed to 3 currently. Marquette Park gets its own ward, and Logan Square is now in 2 wards as opposed to 3. So the coalition members, we're united. We're not going to let others dictate how our map should look like. And the members of the coalition, we're not just Latino. We have Alderman Beal and Alderman Hopkins, and we're going to work to make sure that the data dictates the boundaries when it comes to the new map for City Council.
From the standpoint of your leadership role in the Latino caucus, why is it important that the city adopt a new ward map that includes, the at least 15 majority Latino wards, as opposed to, I don't know, I guess any other, proposal, 14, say, that would be represented in the rules committee map?
Well, when you look at that's a very good question, Erin, because when you look at how the Latino community has grown over the past 10 years and how the Latino community was shortchanged a decade ago during the last remap, we should have more seats at the table. So we're long overdue to be fairly represented. We left a ward on the table during the last remap. And so the data is what is driving the discussion with this remap. And that's our guiding point is that we should have a map that is based on the data. Since 1990, the Black population has decreased and the Latino and Asian population has increased. Take a look at the latest census data. It's 29% Black, 30% Latino. 29% identify as Black. Let me rephrase that. 30% identify as Latino. And right now, in the first time in the history of the city of Chicago, we put forward the first Asian ward. So what I'm trying to say is that Blacks are not the largest minority population anymore. Because like I said, in the census data, 30% of Chicagoans identify as Latino. So Latinos make up over a third of Chicago's population. There are 50 aldermen in the city council, and 15 seats are less than a third. Mm-hmm. So it's only fair that Latino residents have the same representation as any other resident of our city. And that is the biggest strength that all caucus and coalition members have brought, is our dedication to be transparent. And as you know, Erin, covering stories in the city council, I'm the only Latina on the South Side. And there's only 2 of us in the city council, Alderman Rosano Rodriguez Sanchez on the north side. But as the only Latina on the South Side, I'm ready to call out any tricks that the Rules Committee will pull to try to sneak their map into law. And we've called for more openness, like Sunday, that letter that Chairman Michelle Harris sent to us about having a meeting on Sunday where you were there. And, she wanted to have the meeting and we asked for it to be live streamed. We asked it to be public. We want the public to hear how we conduct our work with the map. So, and with that, I just really want to give a shout out to our chairman of the Latino Caucus, Alderman Gil Villegas, because his leadership for respecting every community in the city, and not only that, but he's supporting and empowering the very few women on this city council while championing a fair and transparent coalition map. So I appreciate his leadership, and I appreciate the leadership of the caucus standing up for our community. And I am a woman who represents a minority ward, and I'm very proud of the voice we have given to this very important issue.
Going off of that, you specifically, what strengths do you think you bring to those discussions? I mean, I know we've seen a lot of them kind of break into arguments over process, but what do you bring to that discussion specifically? I guess in your own caucus and to the city council as a whole.
Well, you mentioned, some of the things that we've brought, like during this whole remapping process, is, not too long ago, earlier in the new year, we've put forward some recommended protocols, in the hopes that, I wrote a letter to Chairman Harris, the Rules Committee, of some recommended protocols in the hopes that it would advance our efforts in the map room, because we've been collectively in the map room 50 times collectively as a coalition, and we're willing to go back in the map room. We just want to understand Chairman Harris's expectations. But we drafted a list of protocols to discuss how to conduct our work in the map room so that we can make progress on that work. And unfortunately, there was pushback to make the letters even into the public record, and we didn't get any commitment to in writing to the draft protocols. You were covering it, and you heard, we were trying to request a discussion on requesting a discussion on equity, to ensure equity and fairness should not be controversial. But in that public hearing, many were clutching their pearls because the subject was raised, and those of us requesting the discussion felt it was warranted because of the disrespect we have been subject to in the map room by colleagues and rules committee staff. So, we're ready to compromise and work and cooperatively with them. So that was one of the things that I personally did, with the coalition, is put forward those recommended draft protocols.
Yeah, that was an interesting meeting. I think I got kind of confused myself about like what the discussion was on, when it was just like, can we just accept this as part of the record, when most of the public had already seen copies of the letter. Anyways, it was
Correct.
one of those times where you zoom out and think like, what is actually being discussed here? But that's the way
Yes.
it works. Getting a bit more local here and kind of zooming in, how does this remap affect your 23rd ward specifically? And, what's changing about the ward? What's different? What's even the same from, a decade ago? And how does this...
So 10 years ago, the 23rd ward was sliced and diced to shed portions of the ward to 13th Ward Alderman Quinn and 14th Ward Alderman Burke. And in this remap process, we discovered that it was happening again. We discovered an effort, by the drafters of the city map to map me out completely of the 23rd Ward and move it 5 miles east, placing me in the 14th Ward with Alderman Ed Burke. So if I wanted to run for alderman in 2023 in the next municipal election, I would have to run against Alderman Ed Burke or move to the newly drafted 23rd Ward. So this happened, during the Thanksgiving holiday, right up against the December 1st deadline. Again, in the 11th hour, they thought that they could just draw some of us out of our wards in order to protect, their political insider friends. So it appeared as though they wanted to take away, the Latino voices elected to represent our city's growing Latino community. And they thought that they had the power to erase, a Latina voice. And like I said earlier, there's only 2 of us in the city council. They thought that maybe no one would notice, but they were mistaken. And as it stands now, 13th Ward Alderman Quinn is attempting to take Midway Airport out of the 23rd Ward, and the 23rd Ward yard where my superintendent has his office and place it into the 13th ward.
Hmm.
So so you have some aldermen who are huddled in the back room with Mike Madigan's attorney, Mike Casper, to draw a map based on fake math and political gamemanship at the expense of growing minority communities. So I really want to stress that, the coalition, we've worked in an open process to draft a map that's founded on fairness, transparency, statistics. And to get back to your point with the 23rd Ward specifically, because the biggest difference from 10 years ago is that now I'm the alderman and we have a Latino caucus that's not going to stand for the old guard dictating how our communities are going to be sliced and diced. I'm not going to roll over and let them split up the Southwest side, like they did 10 years ago. I'm not going to let that happen. What I'm hearing from residents is that they want to be back into the 23rd Ward. So I'm working to advocate on their behalf.
And I guess while we're on that topic, can you tell us a little bit about the 23rd Ward? Every ward is unique, but what sets the 23rd Ward apart from other wards, I guess, across the city? And, what are the biggest needs and issues facing residents in your ward?
The 23rd Ward is home to many city workers and especially first responders. We're in the outskirts of the city. We border the suburbs. Many residents buy their first homes here. They start their families. Like I said, we border the suburbs, so that places a greater burden on our small businesses, especially when the city wants to pass mandates or extra taxes, like the plastic bag surge charge at our grocery stores. Like everywhere in the city, we're seeing these small businesses struggling. And our office works closely with our chambers, like the Garfield Ridge Chamber of Commerce, to support our small businesses, make sure they have the resources. And, we're working to attract and revitalize main corridors like Archer Avenue and Cicero Avenue, which surrounds Midway Airport. Very interesting about the 23rd Ward is that we have a strong transportation hub, like in Midway Airport and the Stevenson Expressway to our north. We're also working with DCASE, the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, to bring more public art to the ward, which has never been done before. And I would say what makes the 23rd Ward different is that we're one of the few areas left in Chicago with a strong middle class. It's very blue collar. We have a strong community of Latinos and Eastern Europeans, and our parishes are very strong, and they are filled to capacity every Sunday morning, for church. Something else that I want to add to that is that the issues here are like most places in Chicago. The number one issue is crime. What I hear from residents in the 23rd Ward is that they're fed up with our mayor. They're fed up with our state's attorney. The residents in the 23rd Ward feel that the city council doesn't support our police. They feel that criminals are more emboldened than ever before, and they're tired that their taxes go up and their quality of life doesn't seem to improve. Those are issues that I hear from residents in the 23rd Ward.
Related to that, and something that you touched on earlier, in that you were one of several aldermen who took a pretty strong stance against Mayor Lori Lightfoot's vaccine mandate last year, which requires that all city workers, including first responders, be vaccinated against COVID-19. Can you talk a little bit about that effort and just, recap why that was important for the 23rd Ward and also, other wards and other residents throughout the city?
I introduced that ordinance to repeal the mayor's vaccine mandate because my number one issue with the vaccine mandate is that I felt it was an issue that should be subject to collective bargaining. I mean, that's why we have labor agreements for a reason. And I really believe that the mayor overstepped her power in the way she went about this mandate. There was no oversight as in how this was going to be implemented or managed. The city council wasn't engaged, and I felt that we didn't have a process to ensure that there was, some type of contingency plan in place. I mean, we still don't know how it's playing out because, in terms of like medical and religious exemptions, how are they being granted? I'm hearing that 99% of the Chicago Police Department exemptions have been denied. And so the mayor, she passed this mandate during a public safety crisis. I mean, we're in a time of skyrocketing crime, and the city has the inability to recruit new police officers. And so this mandate, the vaccine mandate that the mayor did, only throws fuel to the fire. So fortunately, a judge stepped in and put a halt to her plan, and firing every worker not in compliance on January 1st. But I believe that when your house is burning down, you don't focus on the leaky roof. And the mayor is going to have to answer to that in due time and answer to the residents next year in the election, because she's going to have to answer for her public safety record. Those are the reasons why I introduced this ordinance, and really want to thank the aldermen who supported it and who voted against it when we held the special city council meeting, because there's a group of us of aldermen who are standing up for our first responders and standing up for public safety, and we're not going away.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what 2022 brings, I guess, even just as far as the pandemic goes, and what restrictions will be peeled back and implemented. But hopefully we are
Yes.
in
Yes.
some sort of clear. Yeah, and now I wanted to talk a little bit about how you got into, office as alderman. So while you've been a member of the city council since, I believe, 2018, is that correct?
That is correct. 2018. Yes.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I served in the Illinois General Assembly.
Okay. Can you speak a little bit about the differences, if there are any, when it comes to, being in the Illinois House versus serving in the Chicago City Council? Is it elected office, or what's different
Sure,
about
sure.
those?
So I served in the legislature as Illinois State Representative of the 21st District from 2013 to 2018, about 5 years. And I've been serving as alderman since 2018, so almost 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the biggest difference between serving in the legislature and the city council is the responsibilities outside the chambers. No offense to my former colleagues in Springfield, but there isn't a whole lot that a legislature can do for somebody except for introducing and voting on legislation. An Illinois state representative can't get you a garbage can. And with the city council, there are constituent services that are the most important aspects of the job. That's what I see. We deal with permits, with sanitation, with forestry, public safety, business development, zoning. As an alderman, you're really in the trenches working with residents, solving problems. And so I enjoy being alderman. It's an honor to serve as alderman of the 23rd Ward. I'm very humbled to serve in this position. Prior to pursuing public office, I worked as a reporter for Extra Bilingual Community Newspaper. It folded, but it was based in Humboldt Park on the north side. And it was there where I really began, just like you, Erin, diving into issues facing the state, the city, and our Latino community. And so back in 2011, during the last legislative redistricting, an opportunity arose to run for an open seat here on the Southwest side, and I took it. I was raised by a single mom, raised on the Southwest side. My mom worked double shifts to send me to Catholic school and eventually to college. She worked hard, but she never had a seat at the table. But she worked to put me in a position to have that seat now. So I'm going to use it to make sure that people like my mom and hardworking families throughout our city have a voice. And that's the real reason why I got into public office. And that's what I see on the line during this remap process.
Kind of just a few more questions here. Anything big for 2022 legislation wise, or I don't know, projects in your ward? I know you mentioned bringing murals to the 23rd ward, but anything else that you can foresee on that?
Yeah, there are some viaducts in our ward that we're trying to clean up and power wash and paint and add some murals to it. But I think the number one issue facing the city is crime. And without getting too much into details now, I do want to say that I'll be working with, some of my colleagues on addressing the CPD staffing issue, and working to empower our police officers with more flexibility and support so that they can do their jobs. Additionally, Erin, I wouldn't be surprised if more efforts to bring transparency and accountability come to the city council, especially since the Rules Committee's activities lately have started to show the public how the sausage is made.
And would that be, I don't know, an ordinance, a resolution, or?
Yes, you will see. There is more to come, so stay tuned.
So that can't wait for the rest of the winter and the spring and summer, I guess. This episode of the Cloutcast was produced by me, Erin Hegarty, and edited by Alex Nitkin. We'll have another episode of the Cloutcast ready for your listening ears in 2 weeks.